morning, and welcome to the Marketing Moms podcast. We make marketing simple for small business owners. That's our goal. That is what we plan to do every single week. I'm Ann Brennan.
And I'm Anastassia Van Greshaby.
And this week, we're going to talk about something different. We're going to actually talk about mental health because this month is Mental Health Month. And we wanted it, and kind of good timing because we also just did burgers and bands. So we want to talk about Mental Health Month, and we want to talk about what happens with entrepreneurs and your mental health. But before we get to that, we want to talk, actually, we had an absolutely amazing weekend. It was stunning. The weekend was incredible. So let's talk about what could have gone wrong. Do you want to talk about
exactly what could have gone wrong? I think it's our fear every year that nobody's going to show up. It doesn't cost us a whole lot to put this event on. We do get, all the bands donate their time. The location doesn't charge us a penny.
Actually, she donates.
Yes, she donates. Our staff is all volunteers. Everything is, so really, I think the only things that we really paid for are the tents, any t-shirts that we're selling anyway. And, I think we rented an amp, so it really isn't a huge expense if the event doesn't go on. But every year we still get nervous, like, are people not going to show up?
Yeah.
Then the weather.
That's what I was about to say. This year we had the weather. Had the weather, and it was huge because it kept going between 30% chance of rain to 55% chance of rain.
It was 79% at one point.
It was awful. So we tented the entire thing.
Yeah.
And we ended up having an absolutely amazing event. We had about 1,000 people there. Kelly Bell came and did a phenomenal job.
Mm-hmm.
Everything went, and we raised almost $20,000 at the door, which is pretty incredible.
Exactly. If you think back to I wasn't at the first event that you had, but you said you raised $8,000 that day, and it was a great day. So, we were blessed beyond belief on Sunday. Like we said, for the 2 weeks, we freak out for the 2 weeks before an event. And the reason, and we have valid reasons. We have had, how many? We had 7 total burgers and bands. So we've had 7 total burgers and bands. 2 of them were in Annapolis, 5 of them at Savannah Park. And one in Annapolis and one in Savannah Park have rained. And we're not talking, it's drizzling or it's light rain. We're talking torrential downpour where the tents can't really hold and they're just flooding everywhere. And so we get freaked out. I don't know why, because even in the pouring down rain, we've always had huge support. And in some regards, people end up coming because their sporting events got canceled for their kids. So they end up being able to come.
Works out really well.
So it always works out.
Exactly.
But of course, this event is so important to us. And just having that, this is a platform.
We're going to start over. All right, give me a minute.
Okay.
All right.
That's hilarious. The joys of hosting a podcast while working from home with 2 Great Danes. I hope this is, it's still recording. That's amazing.
I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I think this is all good outtakes for Amanda. I was just going to tell you need to take that off the chair.
Yes.
It was pretty funny. I think that we should use that, have that as a
blooper.
Yeah. We should don't delete this thing.
Actually, I think I'm gonna tell her what happened and have her cut it
Okay.
so that we don't.
It was really good. It was really
It
good.
was really good. So we're gonna start over. Give me 1 second. Get rid of the banners.
Oh, we're going to start all the way over. Man,
Yeah,
I remember the profound things that we said.
I know. Yeah, right. I didn't put on makeup this morning because I didn't know we were going to do this, and my eyes have been bothering me. So it was like,
well, that's why glasses are like the perfect disguise.
Exactly. All right. Good morning. This is Marketing Moms. I'm Ann Brennan.
And I'm Anastassia Van Greshaby.
And we're here to make marketing simple for you, for entrepreneurs. That's our plan. We want entrepreneurs to be able to do marketing themselves, or at least know how to hire the right people to do it. And that doesn't always have to be our team because we're small. We can't take every client. So today, though, we're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about Mental Health Month. And we're going to start that by talking about, because here's the truth. The truth is, entrepreneurs die at a higher rate of suicide than most people. And it's because they're under a lot of stress and they're very lonely. They feel alone. So we're going to talk about how to avoid that. We're going to talk about why it's important to ask for help and give you some tools to use for your own mental health. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling like you're alone, if you're feeling like things are really, really hard right now, this is a great episode to listen to. It's not marketing today. It is strictly about your mental health. If you're feeling absolutely great and you have no stress in the world, go for a walk. Have a good day. You won't need us today. But otherwise, listen in because I think you could use this episode. Everybody could. So it's Mental Health Month. We do every May, we have an event. It's called Burgers and Bands for Suicide Prevention. And it was just this past weekend. The money we raise goes to help communities, organizations to create initiatives. So sometimes it's American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, sometimes it's NAMI, sometimes it's Warrior Music Foundation. But what we love is when a school comes to us and asks us for money to put a new program in the school that they could not otherwise put in. And we do that a lot. So that's what all of the money is used for. But we want to tell you a little bit about the event because Anastasia, I don't know if you saw, if I did it with you at all, but I kept walking around all day on Sunday, and everybody I saw, I'd go, amazing, right? It's amazing. And that's how I felt all day. I was like, this is amazing. I can't believe it.
Absolutely. I was in such a high when I got home on Sunday night. Like it was incredible. It was our best event yet.
Yeah.
And every time I feel like I've never been disappointed. I mean, you've had 7. I've been involved in 6 of them. Every time it's just amazing to see just how we're reaching people. Like there are people that will come and they'll tell me a story of somebody that they know that died by suicide or, attempted suicide or, and those are those stories. And then there are the stories of the families that bring out their kids, and it's normalizing mental health. And so it's like, I see it in my own children, we have conversations, and it's not something that you need to hide. And I think that that's what this event brings. It's changing the conversation. It's telling people it's okay to not be okay. And it's definitely okay to ask for help or talk to somebody.
Yeah. Before the event this week, I did something I've never done before. I actually did a video, and it was a promo video saying, hey, come on out. And, we can't wait to see you. And then I said, if you see me, because most of the people who follow me online are people who know me, or at least know me in a community sense. And I said, if you see me, give me a hug, because this is a big day and there's always a lot of stress and I could use a hug. The number of people who saw that video and then came up to hug me at the event, it was very touching that they cared, that people were like, hey, you asked for a hug, I'm here to do that. And that says a lot about our people, right? It says a lot about the audience that comes, because they do. Yes, they come for the music. Of course they do. The music is phenomenal. We had 3 stages and 20 plus bands, and they were incredible. Every single,
I didn't hear there was nothing that we had somebody in Annapolis last year that were like, oh, I don't think they're coming back. But I couldn't say that about anybody on Sunday. Everybody was incredible. We had a 7-year-old singing with his dad inside of the acoustic stage.
It was incredible.
And I told him, I was like, you're the youngest kid out here today. I don't know if he was the youngest ever. I mean, he might have
been the youngest ever. Yeah.
So
but it was an incredible day. And we got lucky because we thought we were going to have bad weather. You said we had the 79% chance.
Yes. We had for the 2 weeks beforehand, it was even the day before, it was very ominous. Like it was.
Yes. So we put up tents, and actually the craziest thing is we're going to do that again.
Yes.
First of all, it'll take the stress out if we know that tents are going up.
Exactly. Because we worry about these damn tents for like 2 weeks beforehand. It's part of it too, is I think that we're worried that the tents aren't going to be available. Like that's my concern. I'm like, are the tents going to be available? Because these tent companies, people plan events, they plan graduations or birthdays or weddings or, any number of event, name your event, there's a tent for it. And, if they've planned it for outside and then they see that the weather's going to be bad, they might want to upgrade their tent, which is what we're doing, right? So we already had a tent plan, but then we upgraded our tent plan. And so I'm always stressed out that it's not going to be available. But, it looked like it was going to be horrible. Like I was adjusting things in the morning to make sure that there was no, I was like, if it rains, we need to make sure there's no boxes on the ground. It did rain. It rained the night before. I mean,
it was a mess, but the day of, it was beautiful.
Incredible.
And because we had the tents, it was hot, right? It had already been hot. The tents protected everybody from the sun.
Yes.
So it ended up being an amazing event. Just from a comfort level, we were all so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
So
it was really great.
Yeah, it really was.
I can't imagine. The tents are now officially part of the budget. If you own a tent company in Maryland and you would like to sponsor these tents, please let us know. I'm not afraid to ask in case you don't.
I think it's a good point because most of our sponsors do. We had a sponsor out there, Bob Eager's Service Center. They brought 2 shuttles. They're going to bring 3 next year.
Yeah.
And they drove people to and from the off-site parking because, it's a small lot that we have. And so they took care of that for us. So hopefully a tent company will do the same thing for us at some point because we really do. Our community loves us and they support our sponsors.
Yes, definitely.
So, all right. So let's move on we do want to talk about mental health and entrepreneurship. And I think it's so important. I see this in people. I see the stress in people all the time. And right now, with what the economy is doing, entrepreneurs are more stressed than ever, I think.
Definitely. I think the pandemic has had a serious impact. I look back to when when everything first started and when we closed the doors back in March of 2020, I really didn't think we were going to come back. I thought that there was no way that our clientele was going to retain their marketing. They did, which was incredible because they understood the value of it. We lost a couple, but no big deal. But I think that there was definitely that stress, that unknown. Not only am I going to retain all my clients, but what about my employees? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be healthy? Or what if I get sick, or what if you get sick? What if, you're the owner, I'm not, but especially if you're a solopreneur and you do get sick, who's going to pick that up? When I got COVID, you had everything under control. When you had your surgery, I had everything under control. We've got that. Even though you're the owner, I've got your back. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't have somebody. They don't have anybody that is in the trenches with them and understands what it takes to run a business. It's a lot.
Well, and I think the first thing I want to talk about is monitoring your mental health. I think what happens a lot of times is it slips up on people. They start getting stressed. They start feeling it, but they're not paying attention to it. And they're thinking, well, this is just normal. This is how I feel. And I heard 2 days ago that chronic stress, how long do you think you have to experience stress for it to be chronic? This was surprising to me.
I would say probably a month.
3 days, 72
3
hours.
days.
3 days, and it's considered there are negative health effects from it. It's
Wow.
very, very bad. So we're not monitoring it. So I'm going to give you my favorite tip. I'm actually working on this really hard right now to monitor my own mental health. I'm asking myself, I have meetings all day long. I don't know about you. I know about Anastasia, but I don't know about the person who's listening to this right now. But I have meetings all day long. And so what I'm trying to do between my meetings, thanks to Anastasia, I have 15 minutes between each of my meetings because she made me do that so that I wouldn't have them back to back. And what I'm doing is asking myself, as soon as I hang up the phone or as soon as I get off a Zoom call, I ask myself, what am I feeling and what do I need? So what am I feeling? I'm feeling stressed. Well, what do I need? I'm going to need to get up and move a little bit. That usually helps. Or I'm going to need to close my eyes and meditate for 5 minutes. That will make this feel better. So what am I feeling and what do I need? And sometimes it's as simple as, what am I feeling? I'm feeling thirsty. What do I need? I need to drink my water, right? So think about monitoring your mental health. And if it gets to a point where you're like, what am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling so stressed and this is never going to end. I'm always going to be this stressed. Then it really is time to get proper help. And we'll
Definitely.
talk about that in a minute.
I think that, you were saying it can creep up on you. I think it's like weight gain, right? So
Yes.
like you don't even notice it. And then all of a sudden your clothes don't fit you.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
wait a minute. How did this happen?
Exactly.
And so I think but that is a physical change that you can see. And I think that you need to, mental health and stress, you can't always see that. There are going to be physical side effects that happen, and weight gain could actually be one of them.
Right.
Lack of sleep, irritability. What else could there be? There's all
Well,
these
let's say it this way, changes, right?
Yeah.
Personality changes are huge.
Mhm.
If you can, one of the things we talk about when we talk about suicide prevention is those people say, well, what should I look for? And the number one thing to look for is changes.
Mhm.
If you were a very nice, I will be honest with you, when I went through my worst time, I'm a very nice person. I really feel like I am. Now, sometimes I'm snarky and so some people don't know I'm as nice as I am, but I am a very, very nice person. I will, help you with anything you need all the time. When I went through my depression, when I really went through the worst part of my life, I was flat out mean. I was terrifying in the car. I would scream at people at the grocery store. I was just not a nice person. And it was because I was struggling so much inside. So if you notice a change like that, if you go from being nice to being mean, if you go from being loud to being quiet, if you go from sleeping a lot to not sleeping at all, or from not sleeping at all to sleeping a lot, then there's probably something happening mental health wise. So monitor that, pay attention to
Lack of interest in things that you used to be interested in. I mean, I remember when my oldest decided that she was going to quit band after she had made first chair clarinet at the middle school, and she was like, oh, I'm not doing it in high school. And that was like a red flag to me. I'm like, something's going on. It turned out that she really just didn't like being in the band, but there were other underlying things, and that was like a trigger for me to be like, we need to get to the bottom of this. And I think and it's when you're the parent, kind of, especially since I work with you, ever since I started here, I'm like vigilant,
Yes, exactly.
Probably like, Mom, really, it's all good, like I just changed my mind, like,
Yeah.
I'm like immediately like, okay, what's going on, and when you're the only person in your business, or you're the boss and there's nobody else that can help you, I think that there's nobody to look out for you, right? There's nobody that's like, oh, something's going on. You and I check on each other all the time. Like,
Yes.
there was something last week, it was an anniversary of a death for my niece, and you knew, you were like, I know that this is happening because I can see a change in your behavior. And so I think that is, something that, entrepreneurs are going to struggle with on their own for the most part. And so that's why it's so important that you pay attention to this, and you look out for what we're talking about.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to move. I've got a slide here that I am going to move up because I think it's important. I had put up control the controllables, but let's talk about creating a network. So if you have employees, or if you have, especially if you have a key employee, Anastasia works for me, but a lot of people think she's part owner of the company because she is that much a part of my business, right? And she can help monitor how I'm doing, and I can help monitor how she's doing. If you don't have that, if you're a solopreneur, I encourage, and if you have employees, but none of them are the kind who you feel comfortable enough, like Anastasia and I work together, but we're also friends. We also care a great deal about each other. We're actually practically family. Right?
Ariadne is like, well, Anne's your best friend. I'm like, you're right. That's true.
Yeah, there you go. So it does. It matters that you have somebody. But if you don't have somebody who you feel comfortable with, create a network of other entrepreneurs. And if you're a solopreneur, create a network of solopreneurs and talk about this specific subject so that when you are struggling, you can call them and say, hey, I am really having a hard time right now. And they can help guide you through it, because sometimes you just need somebody. I just had it 2 weeks ago. One of my networking friends, I told him, I'm really having a hard time. I'm so stressed out. And we do a lot of things together. I had said to him, I'm really having a hard time. And right after that, probably 2 minutes later, we get an email from somebody saying, hey, are we still going to do such and such? And I messaged back and said, yeah, yeah. And he immediately messaged and said, no, Anne, remember, we're not doing that because we've got this other thing. And sent it to all of us so that he basically got me right out of it, because creating that network allows you to do that. Creating that network allows somebody else to say, hey, yeah, you said you're stressed out. Let me help you.
And it gives you that guidance, right? I mean, you have Vince from Jimmy Tech. We talk about him all the time. He's been in business for almost 30 years on his own. I think it's 29 years this year. He's been through a lot. We had to let an employee go a couple weeks ago, and I called him and was like, hey, because he was in your BNI group. He's now in my BNI group. He's a client. He's become a friend. And he calls you, you call him. You get it. You get each other and you understand each other, and you have somebody to talk to. And I think it's important that, we say create a network. We don't mean 10 people, right? You just need a handful of people. Even if you have one person, just need somebody who understands you. Both of our husbands are corporate working, and so my husband actually, both of them come from having their own business. Their parents had their own business. Right. So there's probably a certain amount of understanding, I would say, that our husbands have, that most people who have never had if you've never been a part of a small business, you don't understand the ups and downs, the roller coaster, the emotions. You don't get it because you are used to having a steady paycheck and you don't have to worry about anything, So I think, especially if you're like, for you, Blaze is great, but there are probably many things that he doesn't understand because he himself wasn't a part of that,
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing is, like, I might be worrying about a $1,000 check bouncing from a client, right? That might freak me out because I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Meanwhile, he's working for a major Fortune 100 company, and he does things with $8 billion deals, right? So it's like $1,000 doesn't seem like a big deal to him. He was, it's just the way it is. So having somebody who gets that it's really upsetting, even if it's not going to make or break me for $1,000, it's still upsetting when something happens, right? And he can't quite understand that. So having your network who gets the stress that you're going through, who understands that's a pretty big deal. Mm-hmm. Control the controllables. This actually came from my soccer coach that Ethan used to have. And I use it all the time. I will try to think about it. There's only so much I can control, right? The weather last week, this is a perfect example. Burgers and Bands was coming. We couldn't do anything about the weather. We could, however, put up a tent and then let it go and go, the tent's there and it's just going to be what it's going to be. So controlling the controllables will really help you, because I watch a lot of people who get themselves riled up about something, and then you start talking to them and realize you can't do anything about that. You're not in control of that. So it's okay. What can you do to mitigate whatever you're worried about, and then say, that's as much as I can do. And now I have to just leave it and let what will be.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. Do you have anything to add there?
No, I think that was said perfectly, Anne.
Well, the next one, I know you're going to have things to add, because I think it sounds not important, but I think it does. I think so often we get ourselves head down, we start doing stuff, especially entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh. Well, Anastasia, she trained me well. Anastasia, you trained me well. One of my favorite things, I tell this story a lot. When you started, you spent probably the first 6 months basically monitoring what I was doing and saying, should you be doing that, or could I be doing it? Right. And you would ask me over and over again, to the point that I got to the point where I said, oh yeah, this is an Anastasia job, because I could be going out to build the business. I could go out and, work with the CPA on what we're doing and what we can, how we can invest, whatever it is. But I was doing like some of the nitty gritty things, and you took that over. So understanding that this automate, which is so, gosh, let's talk about that real quick. One of my favorite automation tools is the template. You do this a lot.
Absolutely. I do it a lot. I have a lot of, I've got 10 email templates set up in my thing, because there are things that are repetitive. For me, when we onboard a client, when we onboard an employee, there are certain things that have to be done every time, and it's the exact same process. So I have these templates. I'll, edit them before I send them out, but it tells me exactly what I need to do. So I'm not recreating the wheel every time. And why do I know this? Because I was recreating the wheel for the first 30 something clients, and last year in the fall, I believe this is when I started this, is we onboarded a lot of clients in a very short amount of time. And so I found myself writing the same email. And then I was like, oh, I can just say this is a template. I am the vice president of my BNI group. I send an email out to the speaker for next week, every week. So I have that automated, so there are things that, there are tools like that are important.
And sometimes they're small. The automation part, sometimes it's something small. Like I get a lot. Probably 3 a day. I get people requesting to be on our old podcast, Small Business Connections. We don't do that anymore, but I don't feel like just leaving them hanging. So I send an email back, and it says, we no longer do the Small Business Connections podcast, but I do know a podcast you might be interested in. And so depending on who it was, I fill that one bit in and send it back. It's super easy. And it just saves me, maybe 3 minutes, but it still saves me 3 minutes.
Even if it's 30 seconds.
Yes.
Any little thing. You really need to look at your time, right? And I think that being an entrepreneur, you're basically working all the time.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's impossible not to, because you feel like you have to be, and you shouldn't feel that way. First of all, you've got to kind of get that out of your mind, because otherwise you're going to burn out very quickly.
Absolutely.
And that's most likely why I would say so many businesses fail. There's a huge rate of failure in the first 2 years, and an even bigger one in the first 5 years. So these are things that you need to kind of keep in mind. Yes, it's super important to get to where you want to get to, but if you're going to lose yourself or your marriage or the relationship with your kids or whatever it is in the process, is it worth it?
Absolutely.
So you just have to, there's things like that you have to think of. So automating and just knowing, if you just, we have our team meeting every week at 10:30. That is something on Tuesdays. That is something that is automated. It is in the calendar every week. So you're not, and I think we used to, I think we would be like, oh, we'll have it on Friday. And then we'd figure out when it was going to be,
Right, exactly.
It doesn't work. If one of us isn't here, then we're not, we're still going to have it.
We're going to have the meeting.
Next Tuesday, telling you now, I won't be here. I'm going to be on my boat.
Right, exactly. But it's okay.
But you're going to have the meeting,
Exactly.
Or that's an out of, if we decide to move it, we move it. But, that is something that's on the calendar every week on Tuesdays. So we know, what to expect. And when you have that expectation, when you know what to expect, then it just takes it out of your mind. You don't have to worry about it.
Yep. I want to talk about delegation too. So we're talking about automate, delegate, and eliminate. Delegation, it can be, people will think, oh, well, I have to delegate to a virtual assistant if I'm a solopreneur, or I have to delegate to somebody in my office. But I want to give you some other examples of delegation that people aren't considering. Things like, I mean, yes, CPAs, you should delegate to a CPA. You should not be doing your own books. You should not be doing your own invoicing. That is generally a waste of your time. Chances are it's not your strong suit, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you should be taking care of your clients and building your business, not doing that. The same thing goes for marketing. There's a lot of things like that. Cleaning your office. Chances are you should not be cleaning your office. You should have somebody else come in and clean the office, because it's going to cost you less in the long run, right? But one thing that I did very early on, I think, I'm trying to think, I think it was about a year and a half after I started my business. For my entire marriage, I had managed our household finances, everything. I had managed all of it. And about a year and a half in, I said to my husband, I am managing so much right now that I need something else off my plate. So I actually delegated something from home. I also said, I don't want to clean my own house anymore. It takes time that I could spend doing something else, or just relaxing after a really long week. So I got a person to come in and clean my house. So don't think narrowly when you think delegation.
Yeah. I delegated the laundry to my husband.
There you go.
I said to him just last year, I was like, you know what? We've been together for over 20 years, and I have been doing the laundry, and you have had it easy. And when I was a stay-at-home mom, sure, no problem. I got time to put the laundry in, but now I don't. So I'm like, you know what? Delegate. But here's something that, inside your business, let's talk inside your business for a minute. Inside your business, I think what we have found is what you need to do every time you're doing something is think about it. Is this something that I need to do, or is this something that somebody else within my business, or even, I guess, in a virtual assistant, if you have that, could do? So, and then kind of come up with a list. I think has been very difficult. I think more so for me than you, which is funny. It's been very difficult for me to delegate. I am like, oh, I can just do it real quick and thing. The biggest delegation was hiring the new IT company. And, people used to come to me and with any kind of problems. I'm pretty tech savvy, as we would say for them in their marketing. I can pretty much figure most things out. I know how to Google, and I have a little bit of knowledge here, and my husband's a software engineer, so I ping him if I need something. But when we outsourced that IT, I don't do that at all anymore. Like, that is, you contact me, I'm like, contact them.
Even me.
But email BL Technical, because they have it handled. I trust them, and I think that is a big thing. You learned to trust me very early on, and so you were like, here's my bank account information.
Right.
Which is all locked up now, but I have a harder time with that, and I'm much better now than I feel like I was a few years ago. But it's having that delegation and just being like, okay, I don't need to be doing this. I'm going to give it to you. Even just going through our emails, we have Tony who will be like, hey, I got a ton of emails. You need to go through these and see what's going on.
Right.
And he'll go through them occasionally. If we're totally overwhelmed, I've been happy to report that my email account isn't too out of control right now. But we get so many emails every day.
Since we're on the subject, ask Tony to please go through mine.
Okay. I will. So, there's things like that you can delegate. So what is it in your office or in your business that you can delegate? Is it ordering supplies? Like, you don't necessarily need to be in charge of that. Like, you can be like, hey, if you're ordering it from Amazon or wherever, like, put in the order. When it's ready, come to me, and I'll put in the credit card number. If that's how, if you don't have that level where you can be like, here's the credit card, whatever it is, be comfortable. You have to get to your comfort level, but delegation is going to decrease your stress dramatically.
Absolutely. And then eliminate. And this doesn't happen often, but it does happen that you are doing things that really, you start, as I just had this with Zane. I mean, this can happen with anybody. So I'm going to use Zane as an example. He had a ton of things on his plate. My son, he's 15 years old. He has a jury coming up for his music. He has AP test that is really, really important. He's got a bunch of other things happening. And then he started giving me the list, and I went down his list and I said, you don't have to do this. It's a nice to do, but you don't have to do it. So get rid of it. And I think that's a harder one to give examples of, but I do know that they are things that we do, things that we put pressure on ourselves for, and we don't necessarily have to do. Maybe it's a lunch date with somebody that you've put into your calendar that just kind of conflicts, and you say, I can't do that. But maybe you could just move it to morning. Maybe I say, if you can meet me at 7 a.m, I would love to do it. Right.
Yeah. Another thing that you can eliminate too. I mean, so you can look at it on a very wide spectrum. There's eliminating like little things that either annoy you, or, learning to say no is a huge stress reliever, because once you figure it out, and I mean, you just said, you had a great example earlier, where you told the person in your network that you were feeling really stressed, and they were like, let me take stuff off your plate. Bruce Spencer with Walt Eagers, like, we called him about the shuttle, and those were his words. I'm going to take this off your plate and handle it. And we
actually, let me talk about that a little bit, because because not only did he do that this year, but he messaged me. I think you saw messages. Yeah. He emailed me on Monday and he says, hey, here are the things we could do better next year. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I thought, oh, this is really hard. There's a lot of things like signs we have to have made and all these things. Before I even got to respond, he emailed again and said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to be in charge of parking.
Oh, yeah.
Took the entire thing off my plate. Yeah. That was awesome. I no longer have to think about it. It's completely off my plate.
And we know that he's going to pull through. We can think. So that's eliminated something from our list, right? Another thing is that I have seen that has decreased the stress, because this is all about stress, right? How are we helping our mental health? There have been multiple times over the years where we have had to eliminate a client.
Yes.
Oh, because we're just like, you are causing us so much stress, but then we're like, okay, but we're going to lose the money. And then we have to pay the employees. And so there's this balancing act, but 100% of the time, our energy level has increased.
And we usually
has increased.
Everyone that leaves, we always end up getting, at least 2 more, right?
Yes. And it has been, I think we need to trust our gut better, because I feel like some of these people that we knew that there were going to be issues from the beginning. And we need to realize that. And then, anytime an employee leaves, whether it's their choice or your choice, most of the time, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that when he interviewed somebody, he was in a law firm, he was interviewing somebody, and the person kept complaining about the place they were coming from and how they couldn't stand the people and like all these negative things about their previous employment. And he was like, that's a red flag. I never thought of that as a red flag. That is a red flag. Like, what is there? Because they're not having ownership, yeah, we're not all great, no place is the perfect place to work.
Right.
But there's a connection that happens between people's personalities, and that's very important, especially in a small business like this. So I think that's something we need to think of. We had an employee a few years ago, actually, she was employee number 3, and she left, and it was the best thing for us and for her. Right. She has since found a great job. She's gone back to school. She's super happy. We were sad when she left. She quit. It wasn't great at that very moment, but now I see her all the time, and I wave, and we took her flowers when we landed a client. That she
wasn't. You have to have the right seats in the butts in the seat, right?
Yeah.
You have to have the right butts in the seat. And for her, it was not the right position. And luckily she recognized it, because we did. Once she left, we went, oh, I see.
She made the best call, and I think that taught us a lot. And we should have realized, there's things that we need to look out for in future employees, like just what are the things that how do we want us to go, and who, because if you have an employee, even if they're doing their job 100%, if there's not, if culture is important and there's not the connection and they're not happy and you're not happy, it doesn't do you any good.
It doesn't.
It's only going to increase stress for both of you. And then this is mental health, right? So you need to think of your mental health and their mental health. And sometimes the best thing that you could do for somebody is to let them go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So finally, I want to talk about what happens when you feel so much stress and you don't know what to do, right? Here's the thing. I don't want you to get to the point that you have to call really big help. If you're feeling stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, and none of what you're doing, not controlling the controllables, automating, delegating, eliminating, monitoring your mental health, none of it's helping. Ask for help. But I want to tell you this, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait for that moment for that to happen. You can start now when you're like, my life is pretty good. You can start now at having a relationship either with, yes, a therapist is wonderful. We really do encourage therapy. I think therapy is wonderful. But if you feel like you don't need that, a life coach is another great alternative. Somebody who you can talk to and say, hey, I have these things, and most of the time I do really well. Most of the time it's all about building my business and growth and employees and all of this wonderful stuff. But sometimes I have these moments where I'm really down, or sometimes I have these moments where I'm really overwhelmed. And what I'd like to do is establish a relationship with you where maybe I see you once a month, or maybe I see you every other month, but I have the relationship with you so that when I really need help, I can get it. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, if you are at the point where you are already thinking the world would be better off without me, if you're already thinking this is never going to get better and there's no way out, if you're already thinking I know exactly how I'm going to die, if you're already thinking those things, please get help. It is so important. And I'm telling you this because I see it so often. I see people lose their lives, and I'm right here. I could help. Anastassia's right there. She could help. Your neighbor. I'm going to tell you a story. Let me tell you real quick because we do have to go. We're running over, but I want to tell you a story. I got a call, actually text. It was by text both times. I was actually in bed. I was going to bed and I was on my phone because, that's what I do. So I was on my phone and a text popped up from a woman and she says, Ann, I am really, really struggling. And I said, are you suicidal? And she said, yes. And I said, I will stay here. Can you please call the mobile crisis unit right now? And she said, yes. And I said, let me know why you're talking to them. And she did. And we're texting back and forth. And as she was doing that, I get another text from a woman and she says, hey, Ann, I'm really struggling. I know you have a therapist. Do you mind telling me who you use, or do you have one you recommend? Is there somebody I can call? And I asked her the same question. Are you suicidal or you just need a therapist? And she says, I'm not suicidal, but I'm really, really struggling. And I said to her, which I don't usually ask this question, but I was like, is there anybody else you could talk to? Because she's like, nobody will understand, is what she said to me. Nobody will understand. I'm like, there's nobody else you could talk to. She says, no, there's nobody who would understand. Nobody would understand how stressed I am, how hard this is, how much life is overwhelming me right now. And I kept pushing and she still didn't say anything. And the only reason I pushed was because the other woman who was on the phone with mobile crisis right then was her running partner. They run together every single morning and they had not admitted to the other person they needed help. So ask for help. I will tell Anastassia, I am overwhelmed. Anastassia will tell me, I am overwhelmed. We talk to each other because we know that it's important to do that. If you do, you may find out that the person you're talking to also is like, oh my God, me too. I needed help too. And you can work together. So ask for help. I can't stress that enough. Anastasia, I know I said a
We'll
lot.
put the so there's a text line you can reach out to, 741-741, text home, I think it is, to them. They will chat with you. If you don't want to talk to somebody that you're seeing, there's online therapy now. I think COVID, that was one thing that was good that came out of it, right? Like there were all these options for you. Like you may not have wanted to go in person. I was listening, there was an ad on the radio where you don't even have to have your camera on, so you can speak to a therapist. There's people that are local if you want to see somebody in person and actually connect with somebody in person because you've been alone. I mean, we will put so if you are the National Suicide Prevention Line is 1-800-SUICIDE.
Right.
There's also 1-800-273-TALK. Here's the thing. You don't have to be at that level to talk to these people.
No.
The warm line, look and see if your place of where you live has a warm line. We live in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We have a warm line here, and I put it in my kids' phones.
Yes.
I'm like, here, give it. If one of your friends is struggling, or if you're like, just send them the contact, and just be like, give these guys a call. They'll help you. Their cars are unmarked. If they come to your house, they used to have it on their cars. I was talking to somebody at Burgers and Bands that works there. She's like, no, we took that off. So if they come to your home, nobody's going to know.
No.
It is so important that you get help and ask for help, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yes. Yeah, because you know what? Most of us aren't.
Oh, we're not. I don't care who, we talk about this guy in California in the yellow suit. He was the only person at the conference that refused to take a picture with our "You Are Not Alone" hashtag. He was like, oh, I'm fine. Every person that we have told about this, every single one of them has like, that guy was struggling.
Yeah. People are afraid, but you don't have to be afraid because there's help. I hope this helped. I really hope this helps you. I hope whether you're feeling stressed, whether you've felt stressed in the past, whether you're struggling with sadness, whatever it is, I hope you heard us today. And I hope that you can find some relief. Go back and listen. Go back and listen to what we said about eliminating and automating and delegating. Go back and listen to what we said about having a network of people who will listen to you, even if it's, you can give them a signal. All I say to people, within my network, if I say to them, I'm struggling, they know they're going to check on me a lot just to make sure that I'm okay, that I'm actually taking care of myself, that I'm not just spinning out, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you're monitoring your mental health and only try to control the things you can control. It's the only thing you can do, right?
I think this is life lessons, right? This is applicable to everybody, regardless of whether or not you're an entrepreneur. Like if you're just at home and listening to our podcast because you like the sound of our voices,
of course they do.
This is applicable to you. All of this. There are things, even if you're a stay-at-home mom, these things can be applicable to you. You just need to figure out how you're going to decrease your stress, because we all struggle at some point in our life. We struggle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm adding a banner across the bottom. We have a blog. On our blog, there is an article about networking and mental health and how the two of them work together and how having a good network helps your mental health. So check that out. But there's so much help. If AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.org, so it's AFSP.org, NAMI.org. If you check out those organizations, they're there to help. You are not alone. We say it. It sounds cliche. It is absolutely not cliche. The other day at Burgers and Bands, I had people said, raise your hands if you've ever struggled with depression or anxiety or a mental health issue. And everybody raised their hands. It's just a fact. Everybody has struggled at some point. You are not alone in this battle. So, all right. It is awesome that you came here. I'm so glad that you did. Anastasia, you're always great about being here with me and letting me run on. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week.
Yeah. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye-bye.